because I was such an incredibly foul and poisonous creature. That, I decided, was my last attempt at life. I was really, really done. My life was futile. It was time to go. Time to die. The next day I rode out among the new flowers on a scouting expedition. It didn't take me long to find the right spot. A tall mesa above a dry arroyo layered thickly with river rock. I looked out around me among the Joshua trees. I could see for miles. I stared down over the lip of the cliff. Pretty far, about 40 feet high. It was tall enough to make death a sure thing. Everywhere below, rocks jutted up menacingly. This was the place. I rode back to the ranch, stabled and fed the horses, and gave them a lot of water. I desperately hoped that someone would come check on them before too long, and that they'd be safe from the snakes and coyotes. I loved them more than anything that I knew how to love. They'd been my only true friends. Walking from paddock to paddock, I patted the horses and blew gently into their nostrils. I sent pictures to them from my mind to theirs. That's how we talked to each other. Pictures of vacant space that said, I'm not here anymore. Open vistas, empty paddocks. I was gone. I scratched Squirrel's favorite itch spots. I stroked his nose and his nostrils, so soft they felt like velvet. I felt saddest of all to be leaving him. He was a bright, coppery chestnut, brilliant as a buffed-up penny, with a very pretty blaze down his face like a lightning bolt. He'd been a little psycho when I bought him. Well, actually, he'd been a lot psycho when I bought him. That's why I could get him. He wasn't mean, exactly, just adamant about not being ridden. So we hung out a lot together, and eventually he let me ride him and teach him to jump. I thought of all the foals I'd midwifed, the horses I had healed and trained. But that was all over. I knew I could no longer carry the burden of their life forces. I couldn't carry the burden of my own life force anymore. As the sun set, I headed back to the cliff alone on foot. As always, the pain of my wonky legs lanced through my body and my left foot dragged. But tonight, the pain didn't matter to me. It's only when we think we have to live with pain that it becomes suffering. I wasn't going to have to live with it much longer. Goodbye to all that. I sat down close to the edge of the cliff and stared up into the darkening sky. At first my mind chattered away about dying and the utter hopelessness of life, and then slowly it quieted. It was a beautiful, clear desert night. I quit thinking about anything at all as a rare peacefulness stole over me. 100 million stars twinkled above me, and the soft air wrapped itself around me. Because I was done with everything, because I didn't care anymore, I got this gift. I could finally, fully feel the preciousness of this moment. It was like the transient feeling when the rains came, only deeper. The night, the stars, the cliff, all held nothing more or less than pure beauty. For once in my life, I felt calm and serene. Great. Now, I stood up, I ran, and I jumped off the cliff. I was flying, but still watching the stars. no regrets. I don't remember any pain from the impact. Did shock shield me from it? Did my soul step out of my body before I hit the earth? I don't know. I've imagined what it must have felt like, but I can't separate my imagination from my reality. All I know is that I was unconscious for a while, and then I woke up, a little disoriented. When I realized I wasn't dead, I was fucking furious. I was spitting sand out of my eyes and wiping it out of my ears and my hair and all sorts of other places. And it was everywhere. It was embedded in my skin. And I was like, sand? I looked around. I had landed in a really little pile of sand that most definitely hadn't been there earlier in the day. How had that happened? There was no way in hell I could have survived hitting those rocks. That's why I chose that spot. And I knew for sure that the sand pile hadn't been there earlier. Now what? This hadn't been a cry for help. I'd been determined to end my suffering, but all I was stuck with was enormous bruises and abrasions and a killer headache. I struggled to my feet and walked slowly back to the barn, limping, growling and swearing and aching. All that pain, and I was going to have to keep living with it. When I got back to the ranch, I just threw myself down and watched the bruises purple up while I dug more sand out of my skin. I was so shocked that for some unbelievable reason, I was still alive. I now understand that the Sacred Ones did a little intervention that day. I guess that they weren't ready to let me end my life. They wanted me to start my life, a real one, a life with purpose. At 17, I didn't know how or what that life would look like. But I was starting to realize that I'd been given a chance to test my courage, this time by living.